A single golden tile glimmers within an ancient cathedral's vaulted gloom. These silent walls hold narratives more intricate than any manuscript, written not in ink, but in countless pieces of colored glass and stone. We are embarking on a journey to explore 25 of the world's most iconic medieval mosaics. These are far more than mere decoration. They are complex stories of faith and power, encoded with hidden symbols, bold political statements, and artistic genius that has mystified scholars for hundreds of years. By the end, you will be able to decipher the secret language shimmering within these legendary walls. We will uncover why an empress's portrait was altered multiple times, and what mysterious beasts prowl a cathedral floor designed as a spiritual map. What forgotten story would you hope to find told in a mosaic? Gold shimmers across the curved vault of the apse, a divine vision materializing from a million glass fragments. This is the 6th century church of San Vitale in Ravenna, and its mosaic heaven remains one of the most complete and stunning artistic statements from the ancient world. At the very center, a youthful, beardless Christ sits enthroned upon a sphere representing the cosmos. He is flanked by 2 angels who present him to the world, while Saint Vitalis and Bishop Ecclesias, the church's founder, stand by in reverence. The entire scene is a masterpiece of spiritual hierarchy and radiant color, but it is the 2 panels flanking the altar that truly captivate historians. Here, far from the Byzantine capital, we find Emperor Justinian and Empress Theodora in all their imperial glory. Justinian stands proudly, clad in the deep, costly purple dye reserved for emperors alone. He is surrounded by his court, including soldiers and clergy, holding a paten, the golden bowl for the Eucharistic bread. Opposite him, Theodora is equally magnificent, her own purple robes dripping with pearls and jewels. She carries a golden chalice, her gaze serene yet powerful, as her attendants gently pull back a curtain, perhaps inviting her into this sacred space. Their presence here is a profound mystery and a bold political declaration. Why are the rulers of the Eastern Roman Empire immortalized in a church in Italy? This mosaic was a powerful assertion of Byzantine authority over this region, a permanent reminder of who held spiritual and temporal power, even from 1,000 miles away. Every detail is symbolic. The halos behind Justinian and Theodora do not signify sainthood, but rather their God-given right to rule. The offerings they present directly link their imperial power to the Christian liturgy, framing them as the primary patrons and protectors of the faith. Their fixed stares and formal poses are not portraits from life, but calculated icons of an unshakable divine order, a message set in stone and glass for all who worship here to see. High above the floor, where the dome met the heavens, a face of immense power looked down upon the faithful. In the great church of Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, the 9th century mosaic of Christ Pantocrator presented a vision meant to inspire both awe and reverence. The title Pantocrator translates to ruler of all, and this image was the ultimate expression of divine authority. His expression was a masterful balance, stern enough to command respect, yet softened with a profound compassion that offered hope. In his left hand, he held a lavish gospel book, a symbol of the sacred word, while his right hand was raised in a classic gesture of blessing, the fingers formed to spell out the Greek letters for Jesus Christ. This was not merely a portrait, it was a theological statement set in glass, reminding every soul below of the omnipotent judge and merciful Savior who governed their world. Creating this cohesive, commanding face on the vast, curved surface of the dome was a technical miracle. Artists had to calculate the perspective for a viewer standing dozens of meters below, ensuring the features would not appear distorted from that dizzying angle. Each tiny tessera, each fragment of colored glass and gold, was placed with mathematical precision to catch the light and bring that divine countenance to life. For centuries, this majestic face was lost to the world, hidden under layers of plaster after the church's conversion into a mosque. Its modern restoration feels like the recovery of a lost voice, a window back into the Byzantine mind where art and faith were completely intertwined, and the ruler of all watched from the dome. Just a short walk from San Vitale, another Ravenna church offers a different vision of the celestial parade. The Basilica of Sant'Apollinare Nuovo was originally built as a palace chapel for an Ostrogothic king, and its long nave walls are lined with two breathtaking processions. On one side, a line of 26 Virgin Martyrs glides in perfect rhythm, their white robes and golden crowns standing out against a shimmering, ethereal gold background. They move with a solemn grace, each holding a martyr's crown. Their gaze is fixed ahead as they approach the enthroned Madonna and Christ Child. Opposite them, a procession of male martyrs, led by Saint Martin, marches with the same purposeful stride toward a majestic Christ enthroned among angels. The effect is hypnotic and deeply symbolic. This is not a chaotic crowd, but an ordered, eternal liturgy, a slow, beautiful march into paradise itself. The repetitive, almost musical rhythm of the figures and the overwhelming use of gold leaf tesserae dissolve the physical walls, transforming the entire nave into a corridor of heaven. It is a public declaration of faith, designed to guide the eyes and the spirit of the congregation toward the divine. Yet, for a completely different, almost secret experience, you step into the small, unassuming mausoleum of Galla Placidia. From the brilliant public display of Sant'Apollinare, you enter a space of profound intimacy. The exterior gives little away, but inside, the vaulted ceilings are a breathtaking, deep blue, studded with 1,000 golden stars that seem to twinkle in the low light. This is not the grand procession, but the personal cosmos. In the lunette above the entrance, a mosaic of the Good Shepherd sits in a tranquil, pastoral landscape. This is not the powerful Pantocrator or the imperial Christ, but a youthful, compassionate figure, draped in golden robes, tenderly caring for his flock. He sits among his sheep, not as a distant ruler, but as a personal protector. The other walls are filled with a symbolic menagerie, doves drinking from a fountain of life and deer quenching their thirst, all representing souls seeking salvation. Here, the Roman artistic tradition of realistic landscapes and figures is transforming before your eyes. The perspective is flattening, the figures becoming more symbolic, their forms secondary to their spiritual meaning. The art is shifting from depicting the world as it is to portraying the heaven that awaits, a move from earthly realism to a purely heavenly aesthetic. How does an artist convey a reality that is beyond human sight? These two sights, so close together, capture a pivotal moment where art itself was learning a new language, one not of this world. Far from the intimate chapels of Ravenna, the mosaics of Norman Sicily erupt with a spectacular fusion of cultures. The Cathedral of Monreale, perched on a hillside overlooking Palermo, houses one of the most expansive and overwhelming cycles of medieval art in the world. Its entire interior is a shimmering text of gold and glass, a Bible in pictures that covers nearly 70,000 square feet. The sheer scale is breathtaking. But the centerpiece, the image that commands the entire space, is the immense Christ Pantocrator in the main apse. This is not the balanced, compassionate face of Hagia Sophia. This is an all-powerful, awe-inspiring judge, his massive figure and penetrating gaze dominating the church from on high. His hand is raised in blessing, yet his expression carries a weight of absolute, unyielding authority. Surrounding this central figure are vast narrative cycles depicting stories from Genesis and the New Testament, a complete visual catechism for a largely illiterate population. It is a staggering artistic undertaking, a declaration of Norman power and piety funded by a king to outshine all other churches. Yet for all its Byzantine grandeur, it is only one facet of Sicily's unique story. Just a few miles away, within the Norman royal palace, lies the Palatine Chapel. Here, the fusion becomes even more extraordinary. Your eyes are drawn upward, past walls covered in exquisite Byzantine mosaics of Christ's life, to a ceiling that seems to belong to another world entirely. It is a breathtaking honeycomb of wooden muqarnas, a complex, three-dimensional architectural form perfected by Arab artisans. Painted on these countless, intricate cells are scenes of courtly life, musicians, dancers, and mythical beasts from the Islamic artistic tradition. In this one room, the solemn, gold-backed Pantocrator looks down upon a ceiling that celebrates the secular and the scientific, a heaven of geometric perfection created by Muslim craftsmen for a Christian king. This chapel is not a clash of cultures, but a harmonious, deliberate blend, a true melting pot of Norman, Byzantine, and Arab genius. The final piece of this Sicilian puzzle is found in the Church of Santa Maria della Miraglio, better known as the Martorana. Its most politically charged mosaic was created for its founder, King Roger II. It shows the king not being crowned by a bishop or a pope, but directly by Jesus Christ himself. Christ, robed in deep blue and gold, places the crown firmly on Roger's head, his hand resting on the king's shoulder in a gesture of intimate endorsement. This was a bold, unequivocal statement. It declared that Roger's authority came straight from God, bypassing the earthly power of the papacy. It was the ultimate visual argument for the divine right of kings, set in shimmering glass for all his subjects and rivals to see. Together, these three sites reveal a kingdom where art was a tool of statecraft, and where different worlds did not just collide. They combined to create something entirely new and magnificent. Centuries after the commanding Pantocrator first gazed down, a very different face of Christ appears in the same sacred space. Tucked away in the upper gallery of Hagia Sophia, the Dici's mosaic survives as a breathtaking fragment of late Byzantine artistry. Where the earlier mosaics spoke of divine power and cosmic order, this one whispers of compassion and human plea. The central figure of Christ is no longer the stern judge, but a figure of thoughtful, almost melancholic wisdom. His expression holds a deep, knowing sadness, a humanity that feels immediate and personal. To his right, the Virgin Mary turns her face toward him, her gaze filled with a mother's tender sorrow and unwavering devotion. On his left, John the Baptist completes the trio, his own features etched with a fierce and urgent intensity. This arrangement is the Dices, a word meaning supplication or entreaty. Here, Mary and John the Baptist are not merely standing beside Christ. They are actively interceding on behalf of all humanity, pleading for mercy and forgiveness for mankind. The artistic shift is as profound as the spiritual one. The hard, formal lines of earlier centuries have softened. The artists used smaller, more varied tesserae in subtle shades of cream, gray, and blue, creating delicate shadows and a gentle modeling that makes the faces appear to emerge from the golden background as living, breathing presences. This move towards a more naturalistic and emotional style in the 13th century reflects a changing spirituality, one that sought a more personal, intimate connection with the divine. It was a turn from the awe-inspiring ruler to the approachable savior, a quiet revolution in glass and stone that forever changed the language of sacred art. But beneath our feet lies another canvas, one just as vast and far more mysterious. In the coastal cathedral of Otranto, the entire floor is a sprawling tapestry of stone, a monumental creation that defies simple explanation. Crafted in the 12th century by a monk named Pantalone, this is not a single image, but an entire world mapped across the nave. At its heart winds a great tree of life, its branches and roots intertwining to form a complex spiritual roadmap. This is where the expected and the utterly bizarre collide. Biblical kings and prophets share space with the zodiac, while scenes from medieval daily life, like farmers tilling fields, are placed alongside fantastical creatures. Most startling of all is the depiction of the legendary Alexander the Great, shown not in battle, but being carried up into the heavens by griffins. What was Pantalone thinking? Was this a visual encyclopedia of all known knowledge, sacred and secular? A grand allegory for the journey of the soul, where every human endeavor, from farming to kingship, finds its place under God's cosmic plan? Or was it a subtle political statement, perhaps linking the Norman rulers of the region to the glory of ancient empires? The sheer ambition is staggering, a narrative so vast you must walk its entire length to read its story. This floor has endured everything, including a brutal sack of the city that left the walls stained with blood, yet the mosaic itself remained strangely untouched, a resilient puzzle set in stone, waiting centuries for us to decipher its chaotic, glorious vision. In the heart of Rome, a different kind of coronation unfolds, one that would forever change the face of Christian art. The apse of the ancient Basilica of Santa Maria in Trastevere glows with a 12th century mosaic of astonishing warmth and humanity. Here, for one of the first times in such a prominent public space, we see the coronation of the Virgin. Christ and his mother Mary are seated side by side on a magnificent jeweled throne, not as distant divine figures, but with the intimate tenderness of a son honoring his parent. Christ gently places a crown upon Mary's head, while she rests her hand on his knee, a gesture of profound familiarity and love. This was a revolutionary image. Previously, Mary was most often shown as the humble mother, not a queen enthroned in heaven as an equal to her son. This mosaic marks a pivotal moment in the soaring popularity of Marian devotion, presenting her as a powerful intercessor for all humanity, a queen to whom the faithful could directly appeal. Below this celestial scene, a procession of 10 lambs marches solemnly from the cities of Bethlehem and Jerusalem toward the central Lamb of God. These are not mere decorations. They are a direct and clever symbol for the 12 apostles, their innocent forms representing the foundation of the church itself. The entire composition is framed by lush, swirling acanthus scrolls, a motif borrowed directly from ancient Roman art, bursting with life and color. This was not an accident. This mosaic was a key part of a grand papal project to revive the glory of Rome, to reclaim its spiritual and artistic authority. By blending a powerful new Christian theme with the classical artistry of the city's own past, the church made a bold statement. It declared that Rome was not just surviving, it was renewing itself, building its future by consciously echoing the grandeur of its ancient foundations. In this vibrant public church, art was used to teach a new theological idea to every person who walked through its doors, forever cementing the image of Mary as the Queen of Heaven in the popular imagination. In a quiet French abbey, a simple mill becomes the stage for a profound theological transformation. At St. Savin-sur-Gardemp, a floor mosaic presents a scene that seems, at first glance, entirely out of place. We see 2 prophets, their backs bent, heaving heavy sacks of grain into the hopper of a sturdy mill. The mill itself is turned with great effort by St. Paul, and from its base, the apostles carefully collect the fresh, fine flour that pours out. This is not a depiction of rural industry. This is the mystic mill, a brilliant and complex allegory rendered in stone. The grain being poured in represents the Old Law, the commandments and prophecies of the Hebrew Bible. These are the raw, unrefined truths given to humanity through the prophets. The mill, turned by Paul, the great interpreter of Christ's message, is the process of the gospel, the life and sacrifice of Jesus. And the pure flour collected by the apostles, that is the new law, the refined teachings of Christianity, the spiritual nourishment meant for the entire world. In one compact, ingenious image, the artist visualized a core Christian belief. The Old Testament was not replaced or discarded. It was fulfilled, transformed, and given a new, deeper meaning through the revelation of Christ. It was ground down to its most essential, life-giving truth. This mosaic was a sermon in stone, a visual puzzle designed to make a complex theological idea instantly understandable to any monk or pilgrim who walked across it. How do you take the old and make it new? This humble mill offers a quiet, powerful answer. A stark, solitary bell tower rises from a forgotten island in the Venetian lagoon. The Cathedral of Santa Maria Assunta on Torcello feels a world away from the bustling grandeur of central Venice, and within its quiet apse hangs one of the most haunting and graphic depictions of the final days. This 12th century Last Judgment mosaic is a monumental panorama of salvation and damnation. At its center, a colossal, elongated Christ presides over the fate of all humanity, his form stretched to emphasize his divine authority. Below him, the dead rise from their tombs, their souls weighed in a balance by the Archangel Michael. To Christ's right, the blessed are led by a serene and towering Virgin Mary into the orderly gates of paradise, a lush garden where the righteous repose in tranquil bliss. But it is the left side that grips the soul with a visceral terror. Here, hell unfolds as a chaotic, fiery pit where demons, depicted with grotesque and imaginative cruelty, torment the damned with gruesome specificity. Sinners are hanged, boiled, and devoured in a stark, moralizing spectacle designed to sear the consequences of sin into the mind of every worshiper. This is Byzantine art at its most emotionally charged, a powerful tool of fear and hope meant to guide the living. Yet this island masterpiece is only a prelude to the overwhelming spectacle at the heart of the Venetian Republic. A short boat ride away, the very soul of the city shimmers with gold. St. Mark's Basilica, with its 5 great domes, was conceived as a direct echo of the imperial church of the Holy Apostles in Constantinople. Its every surface is a testament to Venice's deep artistic debt to the Byzantine Empire, a deliberate borrowing of imperial splendor to proclaim the Serenissimo's own power and piety. For the everyday Venetian and the countless pilgrims who entered, the first and most important lesson began not in the main church, but in the shadowy narthex, the entrance porch. Here, across the vaults of 6 cupolas, unfolds the entire story of creation, rendered in vibrant, jewel-like glass. The sequence begins with the primal act of God, separating light from darkness, moving through each day of Genesis with a stunning clarity. We see the creation of the sun and moon, the swarming of fish and birds, and finally, the fashioning of Adam from the earth. The colors are astonishingly rich, deep blues and greens punctuated by brilliant gold, making the ancient story feel immediate and vital. This was not decoration. It was the poor man's Bible, a complete visual catechism for the masses who could not read a single word. Before stepping into the dazzling light of the main basilica, a pilgrim would walk through this entire cosmic history, understanding their place in God's creation from the very beginning. These 2 sites, the isolated warning of Torcello and the public education of St. Mark's, reveal how Venice weaponized Byzantine art, using its familiar, authoritative language to teach, to terrify, and to transform itself into a new Constantinople rising from the sea. A final, brilliant light glowed within the Byzantine world at the Chora Church in Constantinople. This 14th-century masterpiece, now known as the Carrier Museum, represents the pinnacle of what scholars call the Paleologan Renaissance, a final, breathtaking surge of artistic genius before the empire's fall. Here, the Mosaics achieve a level of intimate storytelling and human emotion unseen in the earlier, more formal traditions. The figures are no longer static icons, but seem to breathe, move, and feel. In the stunning Disi's Mosaic, a fragment that somehow surpasses even the famous one in Hagia Sophia, Christ's expression holds a profound and gentle sorrow, while the Virgin Mary and John the Baptist turn to him with faces etched with a palpable, pleading tenderness. Their grief and devotion feel intensely personal, as if we are witnessing a private, sacred moment. This new humanism extends to the vast narrative cycles covering the walls, which detail the life of the Virgin Mary and the infancy of Christ, with the detail of an illuminated manuscript. We see the midwives testing the water after Mary's birth, their faces animated with conversation and purpose. We witness the young virgin receiving a skein of purple wool, a symbol of her royal destiny, her posture graceful and natural. The artists employed complex spatial arrangements, with architectural elements receding into the background, creating a sense of depth and stage-like drama. This was not just art for worship, it was art as empathetic experience. The theological depth remains, but it is now conveyed through human interaction and emotional resonance. Every glance, every gesture, tells a story of divine grace working through human lives. In these exquisite scenes, we see Byzantine art reaching its most sophisticated form, a final, harmonious blend of deep spirituality and a burgeoning appreciation for the beauty and drama of the human world, a quiet, glorious farewell set in glass and gold. Another Christ Pantocrator stares down from the golden apse of Cefalù Cathedral, but this one feels fundamentally different from his counterpart in Monreal. Where the Monreal Christ is an overwhelming, almost theatrical vision of divine power, the Cefalù Christ is a more personal, penetrating judge. His face is elongated and severe, his enormous, wide-open eyes seeming to follow you no matter where you stand in the nave. They are all seeing, unblinking, a direct and unsettling connection to the divine. In his left hand, he holds a lavish gospel book open to a specific passage, inscribed in both Greek and Latin. This bilingual text is a crucial clue. It was a deliberate declaration by the cathedral's founder, King Roger II, that his Norman kingdom was a bridge between East and West, a land where both the Greek and Latin traditions of Christianity held authority. Flanking this majestic figure are the rigid, formal figures of the archangels, while below, in a separate register, the Virgin Mary stands in an orant pose, her hands raised in prayer, flanked by the 12 apostles. This hierarchical arrangement is a perfect visual representation of the medieval cosmos, from the highest divine authority down to the church on earth. Why would a Norman king, a newcomer to Sicily, invest so heavily in such a specifically Byzantine artistic statement? This mosaic was not merely an act of piety. It was a masterstroke of political propaganda. Sicily had been recently conquered from Arab rule, and its population was a complex mix of Muslims, Greek Christians, and Latin Christians. By commissioning an image so deeply rooted in the Byzantine tradition, Roger was making a bold claim to legitimate, orthodox rule. He was presenting himself not as a foreign warlord, but as the rightful heir to the Christian emperors of the East, a pious ruler who could unify his diverse kingdom under a single, awe-inspiring God. The stern eyes of the Cefalu Christ were not just watching the faithful, they were watching over a new political order, a divine endorsement set in stone and glass for all his subjects to see and obey. While the Norman kings built their golden heavens, another coastal city preserved an earlier, purer vision of Byzantine art. In the ancient town of Porridge, along the Croatian coast, the Euphrasian Basilica holds a breathtaking cycle of 6th-century mosaics that have survived virtually intact for over 1,400 years. The focal point is the Great Apse, where the Virgin Mary sits enthroned with the Christ child on her lap, a vision in shimmering gold. She is flanked by a solemn procession of saints and martyrs, their faces serene and their robes a brilliant white against the celestial background. On one side, the local bishop who commissioned this splendor, Euphrasius himself, stands proudly, holding a model of the very church you are standing in. This is a deeply personal statement of faith and patronage, a bishop immortalizing his own role in bringing a piece of heaven to his coastal diocese. The mosaics here feel less like an imperial proclamation and more like a community's love letter to the divine, a testament to the rapid spread of this artistic language across the Mediterranean. Yet for a mosaic that pushes the theological boundaries even further, you must travel to one of the most remote and sacred places on earth. Deep within the arid mountains of Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, St. Catherine's Monastery has been a place of uninterrupted prayer since the 6th century. Its isolation proved to be its salvation, protecting its treasures from the iconoclastic controversies that destroyed so much art elsewhere. Within its fortified walls, the apse mosaic of the Transfiguration presents a scene of explosive spiritual energy. At the summit of Mount Tabor, Christ stands radiant within a brilliant blue mandala, his clothes gleaming with a blinding, unearthly white. On either side, the prophets Moses and Elijah emerge from the darkness, while below, the 3 apostles Peter, James, and John recoil in a mixture of terror and awe, their bodies contorted by the overwhelming vision. This is not a calm, hierarchical composition. It is a dynamic, almost chaotic moment of divine revelation, capturing the very instant the human and the holy violently intersect. The mosaic's palette is uniquely rich, with deep blues and earthy tones grounding the supernatural event, a perfect fusion of classic Byzantine style and the raw, desert landscape that surrounds it. For over a millennium, pilgrims have braved the harsh journey to stand before this image, seeking not just to see a story, but to feel its transformative power. How does an artist capture the moment the divine breaks into our world? In these 2 distant sites, from the coastal serenity of Porridge to the mountain isolation of Sinai, we find 2 profound answers, both rendered in the timeless, luminous language of glass and stone. Across the English Channel, a different kind of floor mosaic reveals a world of cosmic order and mathematical precision. In the heart of London, within the solemn chapter house of Westminster Abbey, lies the great Cosmati pavement. This is not a picture of saints or biblical stories, but a breathtaking labyrinth of stone. Created in the 13th century, its intricate patterns are woven from rare and precious materials. Deep purple porphyry, vibrant green serpentine, and brilliant white marble were all cut into countless geometric shapes and fitted together with astonishing accuracy. This was not the work of local English masons. King Henry III brought master craftsmen all the way from Rome, specialists in the Cosmati technique, to execute this singular vision. The pavement is a complex diagram of interlocking circles, squares, and triangles, a silent language of form and number. But what was its purpose in this space where Benedictine monks met daily to discuss the business of their abbey? This floor was a spiritual map. Its concentric rings and perfect geometries were understood to represent the universe itself, a reflection of the divine order governing all creation. The choice of rare stones, some hauled from the ruins of ancient Roman buildings, was deeply symbolic. These materials were seen as eternal, their endurance echoing the timeless nature of God and the everlasting life promised to the faithful. As the monks deliberated on earthly matters, they did so literally standing upon a representation of cosmic eternity. The patterns were not random decoration. They were a meditation on the harmony of the heavens, a visual sermon on the mathematical perfection underlying a seemingly chaotic world. It invited contemplation on the relationship between the temporary human affairs discussed in the room and the eternal, unchanging realm of the divine. How does one build a bridge between the earthly and the heavenly? For the monks of Westminster, the answer lay not in a painting on the wall, but in the sacred geometry shimmering beneath their feet. High in a shadowy gallery of Hagia Sophia, a mosaic of 3 figures seems to offer a simple, timeless tableau of imperial piety. Christ sits enthroned in the center, his right hand raised in blessing, his left holding a book of Gospels. To his left stands Empress Zoe, her face framed by a golden halo and a lavish crown, her hands extended toward the Savior in a traditional gesture of offering. To Christ's right stands her husband, Emperor Constantine IX Monomachos, equally haloed and regal, presenting a bag of gold, a symbol of his financial endowment to the church. The composition is balanced, the colors still radiant, a perfect snapshot of divine endorsement for a ruling couple. But look closer, and the entire story begins to shift. The portrait of Empress Zoe, though aged, is original and intact. The portrait of the emperor, however, is wrong. The head of Constantine IX is slightly mismatched in color and style, and it sits awkwardly on the body, which clearly belonged to someone else. This panel is a lie written in stone and glass, a literal palimpsest of power. The heads of Zoe's 2 previous husbands were carefully chiseled away, their faces scraped from the golden background, and the likeness of her latest consort was set in their place. Zoe, a Porphyrogenita, or purple-born princess of the Macedonian dynasty, was one of the few women to wield sole power in Byzantium. Her reign was marked by her search for a suitable co-emperor and husband, a necessity in the male-dominated political structure. Her first husband, Romanos III, died under circumstances many considered suspicious. Her second, Michael IV, was elevated from the ranks of the court and died after a long illness. With each change, the imperial portrait in Hagia Sophia had to change as well. It was far cheaper and faster to rework a single mosaic than to create a new one from scratch. This was not an act of personal affection, but one of cold political necessity. The mosaic was a vital piece of state propaganda, a permanent public announcement of who held God's mandate to rule. By altering the image, the court was rewriting history in real time, ensuring that the visual narrative of power always matched the current political reality. The malleable gold ground of the mosaic became a metaphor for the throne itself, a surface upon which different faces could be placed as long as the underlying structure of empire remained unshaken. What does this say about art in Byzantium? It reveals that these images were not considered inviolable sacred icons in the same way a pantocrator might be. They were tools of the state, functional objects that could be updated, corrected, and repurposed to serve the needs of the present moment. The enduring figure is not any of the emperors, but Empress Zoe herself, her steady gaze a constant through the changing tides of husbands and politics. Her portrait, surviving multiple revisions, silently asserts where the true, enduring bloodline of power resided. Long before the golden processions of Ravenna, a quieter, more profound revolution was taking place in a small Roman church. The apse of Santa Pudenziana presents a vision of Christ unlike any we have encountered so far. Created around the year 400, this is one of the very oldest surviving Christian apse mosaics in existence, and its style feels strikingly ancient. Here, Christ does not appear as the beardless youth of San Vitael or the stern Pantocrator of later centuries. He is a mature, majestic philosopher-king, enthroned among his apostles in the manner of a Roman emperor presiding over his senate. Draped in a deep golden robe, he holds an open book inscribed with the words, "The Lord conserves the Church of Pudentiana," a direct and powerful statement of protection. The apostles, dressed in the simple togas of Roman citizens, sit around him in a semicircle, their faces bearing the individualized, weathered features of real people, a direct inheritance from the portrait art of classical Rome. But the background reveals an even more astonishing detail. Behind this solemn assembly rises not a flat, golden heaven, but a landscape dotted with the recognizable buildings of Jerusalem. We see architectural facades, colonnades, and domes, creating a sense of a real, physical place. This is a world away from the abstract, shimmering eternity of later Byzantine art. It grounds the divine story in a recent, historical reality, a world the first viewers of this mosaic would have understood. Floating in the sky above this cityscape, a brilliant jeweled cross, a crux gemata, seems to hover before a mountaintop. This is not the instrument of a brutal execution, but a glorious, bejeweled symbol of triumph, studded with gems and crowned with the Christogram, the first letters of Christ's name in Greek. This single image encapsulates a monumental shift. The cross is transformed from a symbol of shame into one of victory and eternal kingship. This entire mosaic is a crucial bridge in time. It captures the very moment when the artistic language of the fading Roman Empire, with its commitment to realism, perspective, and classical dignity, was being repurposed to tell a new Christian story. The philosopher king is now the King of Kings, the Senate is his apostles, and the eternal city finds its new reflection in the heavenly Jerusalem. What did it feel like to stand in that church in the 4th century? To see this new faith articulated with the familiar, authoritative visual language of the old world. In Santa Pudentiana, we are witnessing the birth of a new artistic vocabulary, one that would eventually dissolve the classical world into the golden glow of Byzantium. Within the stone walls of a Greek monastery, the dome itself becomes a vessel for divine breath. Hosios Laukes, nestled on the slopes of Mount Helicon, is a masterpiece of Middle Byzantine architecture, its interior a symphony of golden light and sacred narrative. High above, in the main dome, the scene of Pentecost unfolds with a somber and majestic gravity. The 12 apostles sit in a perfect circle, their bodies turned toward one another in a state of intense, silent communication. From a central point above them, slender rays of divine light descend, touching each of their heads. This is not a chaotic, windy scene of rushing spirit, but a profound and orderly bestowal of wisdom. Their faces are calm, introspective, as if receiving a truth too deep for words. This quiet intensity permeates the entire church. The walls below are lined with detailed scenes from the life of Christ, each moment rendered with a clarity and solemnity that invites deep contemplation. The architecture and the art are in perfect harmony here. The cross in square plan of the church, with its central dome supported by pillars and arches, creates a series of distinct yet interconnected spaces. The mosaics are not simply applied to the walls, they are woven into the very fabric of the building, each curved surface and niche carefully designed to host a specific part of the holy story. The overall effect is one of a complete, self-contained spiritual universe, a place where heaven has been architecturally mapped onto earth. Not far away, at the Daphne Monastery on the outskirts of Athens, the same golden language is spoken, but with a startling new emotional vocabulary. Here, the spiritual universe feels more dramatic, more intimately human. The Pantocrator gazing down from the central dome is arguably one of the most powerful and psychologically complex images ever created in mosaic. This is not the remote, all-powerful judge of Monreal. His face is elongated, his brow furrowed with a blend of stern judgment and profound, almost tragic, compassion. His enormous, dark eyes seem to look directly into the soul of the viewer, creating a personal and unsettling connection. This is a God who sees and feels the weight of human existence. This heightened emotional charge reaches its peak in the monastery's depiction of the crucifixion. The scene is a masterpiece of expressive grief. Christ's body sags naturally on the cross, his head bowed in death. On either side, the figures of the Virgin Mary and St. John are not merely standing, they are convulsed with sorrow. Mary's face is a mask of agony, her hand pressed to her cheek in a universal gesture of mourning, while John's posture is one of coiled, desperate grief. The artist has used the very lines of the composition to convey this pain, with the diagonal of the cross countered by the anguished lean of the figures, creating a visual tension that is almost unbearable. While Hosios Laukes offers a vision of serene, cosmic order, Daphne plunges the worshipper into the raw, emotional heart of the Christian story. Both sites use the same medium of gold and glass, yet they achieve profoundly different effects. One is a meditation on divine structure, the other an immersion in human feeling. How does the same artistic tradition produce such distinct experiences of the sacred? The answer lies in the subtle shifts of line, color, and expression, proving that within the strict rules of Byzantine art, there was always room for the human soul to speak its deepest truths. A needlework chronicle stitched nearly 1,000 years ago holds a clue to the power of a floor. The Bayeux Tapestry, that epic embroidery telling the story of the Norman conquest, famously depicts the moment Harold Godwinson, the Earl of Wessex, swears a sacred oath to Duke William of Normandy. The scene is charged with political tension, but look down at their feet. Harold stands not on plain ground, but on a distinctly patterned, two-toned floor. The embroiderers took great care to depict this surface as a mosaic, using a simple but effective geometric design to represent individual tesserae. This seemingly minor detail is a profound statement. In an England where few physical mosaic floors have survived, the artists chose this specific artistic language to elevate the moment. A mosaic floor, in the mind of the 11th century Norman and Anglo-Saxon viewer, was not just a decorative feature. It was an emblem of authority, of classical learning, and of sacred space. By placing Harold on this prestigious surface, the tapestry's creators were anchoring the oath in the highest possible solemnity. They were drawing a direct visual line to the great churches and imperial halls of the continent, suggesting that this promise, made on a surface associated with divine and royal power, was unbreakable. Its subsequent breaking, according to the Norman narrative, justified the invasion that followed. This embroidered mosaic is a ghost, a memory of an art form so revered that its mere depiction could lend weight to a world-changing claim. It tells us that even in regions where the craft of setting small stones had faded, the cultural memory of the mosaic floor, as a symbol of legitimacy and sacred order, remained potent and alive. What does it mean when an art form becomes so powerful that its symbol alone can alter history? The shimmering language of Byzantium was not confined to churches alone. Far to the east, in the heart of Damascus, the great mosque of the Umayyads rose as a monumental testament to a new faith, yet its walls whispered an older artistic story. When the Umayyad Caliph al-Walid I commissioned his grand mosque in the early 8th century, he envisioned a building of unparalleled splendor, and for that, he turned to the master artisans of his time. The entire courtyard was once enveloped in a breathtaking vision of gold, a mosaic paradise that stretched across the walls in a continuous, shimmering panorama. Though only fragments survive today, historical accounts describe a world without human or animal figures, a deliberate choice in line with Islamic aniconism. Instead, the walls bloomed with an intricate dreamscape of lush, winding rivers, majestic palaces with soaring arches, and densely leafed trees that seemed to sway in an eternal, gentle breeze. This was not a depiction of the earthly Damascus, but a vision of the promised paradise itself, a garden of eternal delight promised to the faithful. The craftsmanship, however, was unmistakably Byzantine. It is widely believed that al-Walid employed skilled Byzantine craftsmen, perhaps even those who had worked on Christian churches, to execute this immense project. These artists brought their unparalleled expertise with gold glass tesserae and their sophisticated understanding of perspective and landscape, but they adapted their skills to a new theology. The classical cypress trees and flowing rivers of the Roman tradition were repurposed to illustrate the Quranic descriptions of Jannah, the Garden of Heaven. This collaboration stands as one of the most profound moments of cultural exchange in the medieval world. Here, in the capital of a rapidly expanding Islamic empire, Christian artisans used their sacred artistic language to visualize an Islamic paradise. The mosaics of the Great Mosque were not an act of cultural conquest, but one of brilliant synthesis. They reveal a shared artistic heritage that transcended religious boundaries, a moment when the same hands that might have depicted saints could also conjure a garden of eternal life, proving that beauty itself is a universal language. Our final mosaic descends into the very bedrock of Rome, a city built upon itself. The Basilica of San Clement is an architectural mystery in 3 acts. You enter a bright 12th century church, but beneath its marble floors lies a 4th century basilica, and deeper still, the ruins of a 1st century Mithraeum, a temple to the pagan god Mithras. This is history in layers, a perfect metaphor for the art that crowns it. The apse mosaic here is a 12th century masterpiece called the Triumph of the Cross. A magnificent jeweled cross grows from the center of the composition, its arms stretching across the curve of the apse. At its very heart, nestled within the crossbeam, is a small but poignant scene of the crucifixion. White doves perch upon the cross, symbolizing the 12 apostles, while the figures of Mary and John stand below in quiet grief. But this is no somber memorial. From the base of the cross, an astonishing acanthus vine erupts into a swirling, vibrant scroll of green and blue. It spirals outward, enveloping the entire scene in a cascade of life. And within these lush vines, the medieval world blooms. Dozens of tiny figures go about their daily lives. Hunters chase their prey, farmers tend their fields, and shepherds watch over their flocks. A woman milks a sheep, while a man chops wood. This is the genius of the San Clement mosaic. It does not separate the divine from the earthly. It shows them as intertwined, with the cross itself as the source from which all of this daily activity and natural beauty flows. The 4 symbols of the evangelists, the man, the lion, the ox, and the eagle, watch over this unified world, while the hand of God reaches down from the top of the apse in a final gesture of blessing. The message is profound. Salvation is not an escape from the world, but a transformation of it. The sacred cross is the tree of life, and its roots reach into every aspect of human existence, from the most profound sacrifice to the simple, humble tasks of survival. To stand in this basilica is to understand that history is not a series of clean breaks, but a continuous, living narrative. The pagan temple below, the early church in the middle, and this glorious mosaic above are not separate stories. They are a single, deep-rooted narrative, each layer preserving the one before, just as the swirling vines of the mosaic embrace the entire world in a single, glorious vision. It is a final, stunning example of the medieval mind's ability to weave together heaven and earth, the eternal and the everyday, into one unified, breathtaking whole. Gold was not merely a color, it was a physical substance of light. Mosaic artists used countless tesserae of gold leaf fused between layers of clear glass to generate a shimmering, unearthly glow, transforming solid walls into vessels of divine radiance. This was the light of heaven itself, a visual promise of a realm beyond the sun. Blue, often crafted from costly lapis lazuli or rich glass, represented transcendence and the eternal cosmos. It was the color of the sky, the domain of God, and when used for the robes of Christ or the Virgin Mary, it signified their heavenly nature and profound wisdom. Then there was purple, the most politically charged color of all. Extracted from rare sea snails in a painstaking process, this dye was so expensive that its use was legally restricted to the imperial household. To be depicted in purple robes, as we saw with Justinian and Theodora, was to wear your authority literally on your sleeve, a direct claim to God-given earthly power. Beyond the palette, a secret alphabet of symbols was at work. The Chi-Rho, formed from the first 2 Greek letters of Christ's name, was more than a monogram. It was a powerful, compact declaration of his presence, often emblazoned on a labarum or military standard, signaling the triumph of Christianity over the Roman world. Similarly, the Alpha and Omega, the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet, depicted Christ as the beginning and the end of all things. the eternal master of time and creation. Even the natural world was encoded with spiritual meaning. The peacock, with its spectacular, seemingly immortal plumage, was a widespread symbol for resurrection and eternal life, as it was believed that its flesh did not decay. A simple gesture could carry volumes of meaning. A hand raised with two fingers extended and the thumb crossing the other two was not a random pose, but a specific blessing spelling out the name of Jesus. A figure holding a scroll represented a prophet, while one holding a book was an evangelist. Every single element was meticulously placed within a hierarchy. The most important figures, like Christ or the Emperor, were always largest and centered. Saints and angels were arranged in descending order of importance, creating a visual map of the celestial and earthly order. The placement of a figure to the right hand of Christ, the position of honor, or their direct gaze toward the viewer, were all deliberate choices to convey theological truths and political relationships. This entire visual language was a carefully constructed system, a codex in glass and stone. For a largely illiterate population, these mosaics were not just decoration, they were the primary text. They educated the faithful on complex doctrines, awed them into reverence, and reinforced the power structures that ruled their world. The next time you see a shimmering golden halo or a figure draped in imperial purple, remember you are not just looking at art. You are reading a silent, powerful sermon written 1,000 years ago. These shimmering visions of heaven were built from the ground up, one tiny, deliberate piece at a time. The creation of a single tessera, the small cube that forms the mosaic's basic unit, was an art in itself. Craftsmen would carefully pour molten glass, colored with metallic oxides for brilliant hues, onto a slab to cool into a thin sheet. For gold tesserae, the process was even more delicate. A master would lay a paper-thin sheet of gold leaf onto a glass base, then carefully fuse another, thinner layer of clear glass on top, forever sealing the precious metal inside its own protective casing. These sheets of colored and gilded glass were then painstakingly scored and cut into thousands of minute, irregular cubes. But the true magic happened on the wall itself. A master mosaicist did not simply lay these cubes flat. They were set into a soft bed of plaster at subtle, varying angles, each piece tilted to catch the flickering light of lamps and candles from a specific direction. This precise angling, known as the inclinatio, is what gives Byzantine mosaics their signature inner glow, making the gold ground shimmer and the saints' robes seem to ripple with a life of their own. The figures themselves were not drawn in outline first. The artists worked directly with the tesserae, building up the image from blocks of color and light, using larger cubes for backgrounds and smaller, more precise pieces for faces and hands to achieve breathtaking detail. This was not a solitary endeavor, but the work of a traveling workshop, a team of highly skilled artisans led by a master who moved from city to city, from Constantinople to Ravenna to Venice, carrying their specialized knowledge like a sacred trade secret. The cost was astronomical, consuming fortunes in gold, rare stones like lapis lazuli, and skilled labor. Only the wealthiest patrons could afford such a permanent and luminous statement of their power and piety. An emperor, a pope, or a king did not just commission a mosaic. They invested in a legacy, funding a project that would outlive their dynasty, a conversation in light and glass between their earthly reign and the eternal kingdom. Even with all we have uncovered, some of these walls still hold their secrets close. The sprawling floor at Otranto remains a riddle, its chaotic parade of kings, beasts, and Alexander the Great ascending with griffins resisting any single interpretation. Is it a grand encyclopedia of knowledge, a map of the soul's journey, or a complex political allegory for the Norman rulers who commissioned it? Scholars have debated for centuries, and the floor offers no easy answers. Similar mysteries shroud the identities of certain figures in Ravenna's processions, their specific stories lost to time, leaving us with only their solemn, golden faces. Beyond the figures themselves, some experts suggest that the very dimensions and numerical patterns within these mosaics could be a form of sacred geometry, a coded mathematical language meant to reflect the harmony of the heavens, a theory we can now test with digital precision. Modern technology is finally allowing us to peel back the layers. Advanced multispectral imaging can peer beneath the surface of the plaster, revealing the preliminary sketches, the underdrawings that guided the master's hands. These ghostly lines show us their first thoughts, their corrections, and sometimes even completely different compositions hidden for 1,000 years. Digital restoration software can virtually remove centuries of grime and smoke damage, letting us see the original, vibrant colors as they were meant to be seen, before time muted their brilliance. In some cases, these tools have uncovered hidden inscriptions, names, or dates painted on the wall beneath the tesserae, providing crucial clues to dating a work or identifying a patron. Each new scan is like finding a lost key, offering a chance to solve a puzzle that has waited since the Middle Ages. What forgotten signature or altered design might be hiding in plain sight, just waiting for the right light to reveal it? The divine light of Byzantium never truly faded. It simply transformed. For centuries, the shimmering gold grounds and symbolic power of mosaics continued to cast a long shadow across the canvas of European art. When Gothic painters began creating their own sacred panels, they reached for that same heavenly vocabulary. The brilliant, flat gold leaf backgrounds behind their solemn Madonnas and saints were a direct inheritance from the Mosaic tradition, a way to dissolve the earthly world and place their subjects within an eternal, spiritual realm. This was not a mere decorative choice, it was a theological one, continuing the Byzantine mission of using art as a window into a transcendent reality. Far beyond the church, the intricate patterns and masterful use of color perfected by Mosaics traveled along trade routes, deeply influencing the development of Islamic art. The complex, interlocking geometric designs that adorn mosques and palaces, the so-called arabesques that seem to flow infinitely without beginning or end, share a common artistic ancestry, with the swirling acanthus vines of San Clement and the precise cosmic diagrams of the Cosmati pavements. Both traditions understood the power of pattern to evoke a universe governed by divine order and harmony. Even the seemingly radical break of 19th century Impressionism carries a faint echo of these ancient walls. Artists like Claude Monet became obsessed with capturing the fleeting effects of light, how it shimmered on water or dissolved solid forms into particles of color. While their goals were vastly different, their technique of building an image from countless individual dabs of paint is a distant cousin to the Mosaics' method of constructing a face from 1,000 pieces of colored glass. Both were creating a cohesive whole from fragmented points of light, one for spiritual illumination, the other for naturalistic observation. The legacy of these medieval masters is a testament to the enduring power of their vision, proving that an art form devoted to capturing the light of heaven would, in time, help teach us how to see the light of our own world. This journey across a millennium of art leaves us with more than just beautiful images. We have traveled from the classical echoes of Rome in Santa Pudenziana, where Christ first appeared as a philosopher king, to the spiritual intensity of Byzantium's all-seeing Pantocrators, and onward to the spectacular cultural fusion of Norman Sicily, where Christian, Islamic, and Byzantine genius merged under one roof. These 25 mosaics are far more than decoration. They are frozen history, capturing the political ambitions of empresses and kings. They are profound theological statements, rendering complex doctrines in a language of light and symbol for all to understand. Most of all, they are enduring testaments to a universal human drive to create, to build bridges to the divine, and to leave a mark of beauty that defies the centuries. This story is not locked away in a library. It is waiting for you in the quiet apse of a neighborhood church, glowing on a distant cathedral dome, or shimmering from a museum wall. I encourage you to seek out these masterpieces in person if you can, or to explore their digital traces online with a newfound eye for their hidden language. Let me know in the comments which of these iconic mosaics captivated you the most, and what story you saw written in its glass and stone.